Hello everybody from the Harcourts family. My name is Richard Wright and I'm delighted that you are viewing this video. All the pressure is on me to give you something back for the gift of your time. I don't take that lightly. I'm really hoping that I can return that gift by inspiring you, by motivating you, encouraging you, and perhaps giving you some mind hacks to help you through this time. I think every single one of us at this point in time understands what it feels like to be given lemons. It's been a tough time. The last 4 months have really been a roller coaster, and there've been many emotions throughout all of this. I think one of the terms that has struck me more than any over this time is that of global weirding, and it really is a weird time. Nothing is as it seems. We've got no idea when we're going to see the end of this thing. We're trapped in this place where we just want to go back to normal, and I still hear people over and over and over again saying, when are we going to go back to normal? When are things going to return to normal? And then there's this fear of the idea of what the future holds, and that's nothing new to you. We've heard for many years from a property professional point of view in the industry about insecurities and commission earners having salaries and caps on earnings and all sorts of things, and that's been a tough space. And how many of those things have come to pass, but yet they hold us in this place of not being able to go back and battling to see a future. So that leaves us very often feeling like we are victims of whatever it is, that place in which we found ourselves. And I'm no stranger to that. This is what a cancer victim looks like. This is about 4 years ago, the first time I found out that I had brain cancer. And at this particular time in my life, I was told that I had only 6 months to live. And that was really tough. That was the ultimate disruption and my life being turned upside down. And all of us know that right now. It's that feeling of not being in control. Really worrying about what the future is going to look like, worrying about, am I going to be able to earn money and income? How am I going to look after my 2 little girls? What's going to happen to me from a health point of view? And that's also massive right now. We're safe inside our houses, and the minute we leave, we're right in the middle of that danger zone, and there's COVID-19 all around us, or so it seems. And how do we get on top of that feeling of being a victim? And what happens is that the more we focus on the obstacles, the more we focus on the rules, the regulations, the restrictions that our government have imposed, the more we become victims of that. And a lot of that is fear. It's completely fear-based. And for me with cancer, it really was. I was given that 6-month prognosis, and do I really only have 6 months to live? And what's going to happen to my 2 little girls without a dad? And what's going to happen to my body and my brain? And am I still going to be able to think? And there was a lot of fear, and that really traps you in that place where you're not quite sure how you can get on top of things. And it's overwhelming, and it's really big. And change is messy, and it's hard. And when we're stuck in the middle of it, it really feels like we're stuck in the middle of a storm, and we can't even see the shore. And I totally get that. So what I'm going to try and help you to do is to figure out, what are the things, how can we identify the things that we can control, and how do we accept the things that we can't? And that's part of that change cycle. And we've all been through that right now. That's that feeling when we first heard about the registrations and regulations and the rules of this fear and the shock, and then the denial. Surely this isn't my life, and surely it's just a joke, and it's, we're going to go back to normal. And if there was just a pill that we could take and wake up and everything would have been a bad dream, well, it's been a really bad dream. And there is no pill for that thing. So here we are stuck in that place. And I think what happens is we get trapped in this box of finite thinking, where the rules of the game are pretty finite. We know what they are. And it's the same for me with cancer. This is what you can eat. This is what you can't eat. This is what you can drink. This is what you can't drink. This is when you can exercise. This is when you can't exercise. And does that sound familiar? Yes, it does. We're all in that place. And how do we look on the outside of that? And we often feel beaten and overwhelmed. And I totally get that. In fact, what happened is that I overcame that first prognosis, cancer prognosis, and I was one of only about 118 people on this planet to have ever survived a primary pituitary carcinoma. And I celebrated big for about 6 months, and then it came back. And the second time, it was so much harder. And that's how we're feeling right now. Every single time we see Cyril on that TV, it's like, oh my goodness, what is he going to take now? And the last time he took at the time before last, in fact, you lose track. I mean, we were level 3 advanced, and then we went to level 3 advanced 0.78 oh, and now I don't even know where we are right now. All I know is that there's no more red wine, and my kids are back at home, and that's all I know. And every time it just seems to get harder and harder. It's like, man, when is it going? When are we going to get to the finish line? And can we even see what the finish line looks like? And that's tough for any of us. So if you're feeling like it's got on top of you right now, you're not alone. You're completely human. You're completely normal. And there are going to be times that are easier than others. Your mindset really matters. So whatever you're thinking right now, whatever you choose to believe, you will get more of. If your mindset is a negative one, if you're looking at the market and saying the market is a really negative place to be right now, well, then you're going to get more of whatever you're thinking. That's just what happens. Our thoughts determine our perceptions determine our reality, and our reality is going to determine our actions and our behavior. So if we want to change our behaviors, if we want our behaviors to reflect something that is positive, a positive belief in the market, a belief that things are going to get better, or there are solutions and opportunities and possibilities out there, we first need to think that. And mindset is incredibly important. And I've learned that throughout the cancer journey. In fact, every single one of the top specialists that I've dealt with have all said the same thing, is that overcoming something like a terminal disease, overcoming something like you stuck in the middle of a global pandemic, is 50% what you think in your head, your attitude, and 50% what the doctors can do for you, and the help that you can get, and all the other factors out there. And they really wish they had more control over the stuff that goes on between your two ears, and they don't. And it really does make a difference. Your mindset really does matter. So I had to make that choice throughout the cancer journey, that I was not willing to be kept in this box of this is what you can and can't do. This is what your life is going to look like. And I needed to test the boundaries of that. And that's the power of infinite thinking, where we say, what is possible? And the actual slogan for Iron Man is anything is possible. And I truly believe that. And whether you believe that it's possible for you to become a top-selling agent, to become the top-selling agent within Harcourts, to go on and be one of South Africa's top-selling agents, whether you believe that, whether you don't, it's going to determine it. And so often from agents I hear, well, if I had that area, if my sellers are different to those sellers, and somehow they're excuses. And that's what happens. The minute our performance is lacking, we look around us, and it's got to be anything but us, especially right now. And we've got so many things to blame it on. And the minute we start blaming it on all those things, we become more of a victim of those obstacles. So this was me with stage 4 brain cancer saying, stuff it. I'm going to go and enter another full Ironman, because if I can do that thing, I can overcome cancer again. If I can do that thing, I'm proving to my 2 little girls that their dad is going to be okay. It was an incredibly emotional moment crossing the finish line for the first time. My 2 little girls were there. They were waiting with a medal. They put it around my neck, and it was just gushing with tears. It was a huge triumph and a victory of, I can do this. And if I can do this, what are those things? How do you get to that finish line? What does that finish line look like for you? What is that feeling for you that all the things that everybody's telling you are impossible right now? And I like that space, because I'm a bit of a rebel like that. And when you tell me it's impossible, well, I'm going to show you. And that's a great attitude. It's stretching yourself. It's pushing the boundaries, and it's resilience. It's how we think. And you know what resilience really is? It's the best definition I can give you. And the most simple one is resilience is simply how we adapt to change. And that's why you see the word on the board there is resilience is all about how we adapt. It's how agile we are. Do you feel like you're adapting right now, or do you just want your normal back? And I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said that you can neither suffer your past nor your future, because they are but your imagination and a memory. So that past that you want to go back to is actually just a memory. And what are you wanting to go back to? I'm hearing it all the time still from people saying, I just want to go back to normal. When is it going to go back to normal? What is normal? And then we're trapped in this imagination of the new normal. In fact, the new normal is that we're hearing the new normal all the time. But there is no new normal other than this. This is whatever this is, the future is now. This is it. This is the new normal. Get used to it. But we want to go back. And why do you want to go back? I'd hazard a guess that the reason we yearn and we long to go back is because it was safe, it was comfortable, and it was familiar. I'd urge you to be very careful about the normal you want to go back to. How much of that was actually ideal, was amazing? Or was it just you knew it? And this idea of change that is messy and hard and painful is purely because it's the unknown, and we fear the unknown, and I totally get that. And we have to get used to the space and accept that space, because that's the only way. When we embrace this and figure out what we can control in this moment, in this now moment, we can then move forward. And that's tricky at times, and it's hard in the middle of all of this, but it's totally possible if you want it enough. So it's all about a finish line, and those are the goals. And what are those goals for you? And the problem is, very often our goals are so big. We've got these huge, big aspirations about how many sales we want to make in a year, what our turnover must be in a year, and then we break it down per month. And when we do that, it's 12 months, but we actually only have 12 months as a property professional, because you can write off from the 16th of December to the 11th of January, and then in the middle of winter, the winter of our discontent, and then the April school holidays, and right now we can't even follow a calendar like that because it doesn't exist. So how do you measure that big target of 24 sales in a year, or whatever that is, or how many rentals, to grow your book? And you've got to break it down. So when you start an Ironman, you can't think of the finish line because it's just too long. There's so much that can happen on the way to that finish line. So this is a race. It's a half Ironman. It's 70.3. It's in Durban. And it was a big goal for me. It was a big goal for me last year. It's always in June. This year I entered, and it's been postponed to next year because of COVID. But I actually only entered this race because I was interviewed live on TV, and the interviewer said to me, Richard, what is your next goal? And I was like, and I didn't want to admit that I didn't have one. And so top of my head, I was like, okay, well, I've got some time for that thing. I can train 70.3. And then I realized I had hardly any time. But here's the problem, right? I had this goal, this thing that became my purpose. And purpose is really important. What is your sense of purpose right now? In fact, purpose is so big for me that I've just recently written a book called The Power of Purpose. And it's literally about my 4-year journey of overcoming 3 different brain cancers, and my purpose that's got me to that finish line of overcoming. And that purpose of a finish line for me in terms of a race is, if I can do that thing, I can overcome cancer again. If I can do that thing, I'm proving to my 2 little girls. You heard the story. What is that thing for you? What is that purpose? And then we've got to break it down. But what happens very often from a purpose point of view is we've got this idea of where we want to be. We've got this idea of where we want to go, but we kind of get fixated on the obstacles. And what I need you to know is the obstacle is the thing that you see when you take your eyes off the goal. The minute you take your eyes off that sense of purpose, this is where I want to go, at that point in time, you start to identify all the reasons why you're not going to get there. And we tend to do that very easily as property professionals. It's the market, it's our competition, it's the commission that's a problem, it's the sellers, it's the buyers, it's the tenants, it's the landlords, it's the deeds office that is so slow, it's the conveyancing attorneys, it's the municipalities right now that are not getting those clearance certificates out. It's all of those things become the problem, and the more we fixate on those things, the more they become obstacles. And after a while, all we can see is those things, and how on earth are we going to get past that? And that again is finite thinking. We look at this finite little idea of why we are stuck in this place where we are right now. So at this particular time for this race, my obstacles were huge, and I'd hardly done any training. And the reason I'd done hardly any training for 6 months is because I had stage 4 brain cancer. And because 3.5 years of chemotherapy and drugs, and I just felt beaten. And then in February that year, I went on a trial drug, a chemotherapy drug through Israel, and that just messed me up. 6 love, 3 months. And eventually I had to come off it. It got so bad that I was battling to breathe, and the specialists were concerned that I might even have lung cancer. It might have spread to my lungs. They did a bronchoscopy and found out that it was pulmonary toxicity from the chemotherapy, and I had these big nodules on my lungs. So I was really battling from that point of view. And because my health was that bad, and because of the swelling in my brain, I landed up with 2 brain bleeds, and I had a couple of seizures that year, and it really wasn't great. So these were the obstacles that were going to prevent me from getting to that finish line. And they're realistic obstacles. They really are. Brain cancer and brain bleeds and lung issues and. But you know what happened? That morning dawned, and I went to the beach, and this is my little girl, my youngest daughter, Bailey, helped me put on my wetsuit, and I managed a bit of a grimace. It looks like a smile, but it's not really. It's that look, I think I'm going to die today. It's a bit like that, because all I could think about were those obstacles, right? And then, a curious thing happens in terms of purpose. The minute we take that first step in the journey to purpose, the minute we identify what we need to do to get to the finish line, and we start At that moment in time, an incredible thing happens. All that trepidation and the uncertainty and the fear goes out the window. And all of a sudden, all we are focusing on is the matter at hand, this thing that we need to do. And that's exactly what happened for me on that day. As soon as the gun went off and I raced towards the water, all of a sudden, all of those obstacles disappeared. And all I needed to focus on, and I like to break the race down. It's too long to think of the finish line. In fact, right now, you don't even know where the finish line is. When is this COVID-19 thing going to end? With the vaccine? No, it's here to stay. How are we going to, wow. The minute you start thinking about that, your energy just is like, oh, wow. But when we focused on what we need to do, it's somehow a lot easier. And for me, I the things I can't control, and the same thing for you right now. There's no such thing as a bad market or a good market. There's just the market. And every single one of those athletes, the weather is what the weather is. We can't change it. We can't change the sea temperature. We can't change the currents in the sea. We can't change how bumpy the sea is. I can't control the competition. There's so much I cannot control, and the same thing for you. So I've got to figure out the same as all the other athletes, because the market is what the market is. Your competition has the same troubles that you have, same issues, same clients, same problems. It's the same water. We've just got to figure out how to do it best. And for me, the only thing I can control is me. And I need to control that thing between my two ears and use it to serve me. So what I do is I use my brain and controlling my thoughts to focus on my actions. And I even start saying to myself, push forward and glide, breathe, push forward and glide. Are my hands equidistant? Am I swimming straight? Am I taking the shortest line possible? Or am I swimming all over the place? Am I worrying about everybody else and short stroking? Are my feet up in the water? Am I getting the most thrust for every single ankle movement that I possibly can? Am I breathing to the front and looking where I'm going? Because all I need to do is look at where I'm going. There's no point in looking where the competition is, or looking how far I've come, or looking where I am, because the only thing matters is where I'm going. Do you get that? That's how we're going to navigate this market, is to figure out where we're going and how can we get there. What are the actions we need to do? I enjoyed the swim. I had an amazing swim. It just felt so good to be out there, and I was focused, and I had a purpose, and I was going to go and do this race, and it was going to make me feel good about beating cancer. And about 100 meters from the shore, I felt the water pull me back, and it had been relatively flat. The waves weren't big. There were a couple of big swells, but it wasn't bad. And as I looked behind me to breathe, this huge big wave came bearing down on top of me, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be damped. Where did that come from? And I pushed my arm forward as hard as I could, and I kicked like hell, because I thought if I can just catch this wave, I'm going to be okay. But it was too late, and the wave grabbed my arm, and it swung me right over. It took my whole body, and I literally saw the water come up, high up, and I looked down, and there was the sand, and the next minute, my face hit the sand first, and my lip was on the bottom of the sand, using it as a brake on the sand, and my goggles smashed into the sand, and my cap was gone. And then the next minute, I felt this excruciating pain in my shoulder, and this noise under the water. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is that? And I'm being tumbled around as if I'm in the spin cycle of a washing machine. And I'm thinking, what is it broken? What is it? And after tumbling around in the water, I finally managed to stand up a little bit closer to the shore. But I was a bit kind of, disorientated. And I looked down, and my arm should have been next to my body. And I looked down, and it wasn't. It was at this angle. There was no shoulder where my shoulder should have been. And it was excruciating pain. And it didn't matter what I did with my arm. And I somehow made it out of the water, and the medics came running over and helped me across to the medical vehicle. And the doctor came across, and he took one look, and he said, you've got a dislocated shoulder. And I wanted to say, I could tell you that there's something wrong with my shoulder, and this is really not great. And at this point in time, ladies, I must tell you that pain is worse than childbirth. I've never had childbirth, but I'm sure. Okay, I'm just kidding. Out of respect to you, I know that childbirth is way worse. But it was hectic. And I sat there thinking, oh my goodness, is this my race? Is it done? What am I going to do? And I said to him, is there no ways that we can sort of strap it? And he said, no, your race is done. It was like, are you nuts to even think about that? And then one of the race referees came across to me, and she had her camera, her phone, and she put it in my face, and she said to me, DNF, we need to DNF me. Let me see your number. DNF means did not finish. In other words, they're taking me out of the race. And I was like, no, can't we just DNF, done? And then the doctor wanted to take my wetsuit off. And he's pulling on this arm, and I'm trying to pull my arm back, but I can't because I can't use it. And I'm holding onto the wetsuit, but he's trying to pull the wetsuit. And in all of that movement, the next minute, the thing pops back in. And after sort of 30 seconds, a minute, a bit more, I'm like, this feels so much better. Wow. And I said to him, do you don't think that I can continue? He's like, no, you can't continue. And the nurse came across, and she said, no, we need some debridement, and we need to put stitches in your nose and in your lip. And I was like, no, we'll be fine. Just give me some painkillers, and I want to go and cycle. And then the doctor said to me, no. At this point in time, if you want to continue, there's no painkillers. If you want to stop now, there's a van behind you. It's packed with painkillers. Help yourself. But if you want to continue, no. And I had to call the race referee over and beg her to let me back in the race and take off the DNF. And off I went. And I had to fight to get the race chip because the wave had taken that one off. And everybody was saying the same thing. It was like, kind of, no, just stop. It's done. And I was like, no, I'm determined. You see, when something... and it fulfills your purpose, when your very idea of meaning and being is around this one thing, how badly do you want it? And how much are you prepared to go through in order to get there? That's what resilience is. Resilience is adapting to change. It's how we adapt to change. There are a whole lot of things that changed for me on that day. And either I was going to succumb to that and be a victim of these things, or I was going to decide that I'm not a victim. I can adapt, I can change, and actually I can dig deep because it means that much to me. And I fought to get a timing chip. I went off to go and find my bicycle. It's one of the longest transitions in the world. It's about 1.5 kilometers. And I got to where my bicycle should have been and it wasn't there. And I looked at the number, my race time number, and I looked at the bike rack and same number, my bike wasn't there. And I thought, what do I do now? And I ran to the end of transition and I asked the race referee and she said, I don't know what you need to do, but I think you need to go back to the other side of transition. And I ran all the way back to the transition again. And then I finally found somebody and there's blood coming out of my nose and everybody's saying to me, Richard, what's wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And my arms are really sore. And eventually they said, no, we took your bicycle away because you DNF on the beach. I was like, where's my bicycle? Finally, they gave it back. And I managed to get through the cycle and I couldn't use my time trial bars because the pain was just too bad. But I did it. And then I got off and I started to walk and then I ran and then I walked and I ran and depended on how much pain I could endure. And when it felt okay, I jogged and then I hooked my thumb on my race belt when the pain was just too much. And I got to the finish line. And then I went to this is what I looked like when they DNF'd me. This is the actual picture that the race referee took. And I'm on the beach. You can see the blood in my shoulders gone. And I went to the tent afterwards and the same doctor who saw me on the beach came across and he said, looked at the medal. He said, did you finish the race? And I said, for sure I finished the race. And he said, you must be a little bit nuts because there's no way they even thought that you would do the bike. Wow. And it's how much you want something. So here's the photograph that means everything to me. Here's the medal that says, hey, I'm going to beat brain cancer again. Here's the medal that says, hey, girls, your dad's going to be fine. That's how much that meant to me. I believe that forced change is the best change. When our options are limited, when we've got very few options, at that point in time, we either step up and we figure out how to get through this thing or we succumb. And you're always going to be faced with those challenges. That's what it is. And we can whine about them, moan about them, complain about them, focus on them, make them the object, those obstacles. Or we can say, hold on 2 seconds. I know where I'm going. I know where that finish line is. And I know what I need to do to get there. So I need you to keep moving forward. That's all it is. Keep moving forward. Whatever that means for you, those activities that you need to do, keep moving forward. I lost all my business at the beginning of lockdown, every single bit. I'd finally got to the point I was in remission, went into remission at the end of February. Deborah, my partner, life partner and work partner, moved up from Port Elizabeth. We moved in together. First time I'm living with somebody since I got divorced 10 years ago. Finally getting my head above the medical bills and I'm booked up on the global circuit as a speaker and life is looking great. And then in the first 3 days of COVID-19, every single bit of my future business disappeared. Every gig, every conference, every event cancelled or postponed. And I sat there thinking, how on earth am I going to pay for my kids' school fees, let alone for the house, let alone look after Deborah, what am I going to do? But I had to keep moving forward. I had to kind of figure out, I had to hustle. I had to kind of figure out how I could be relevant and how I could help. And essentially that means we need to act as if we're never going back. As long as we are holding on to this idea of going back to something and we just want to go back to that thing, the thing that I know, the thing that's familiar, the thing that I'm comfortable with, prevents us from moving forward. And in a triathlon, you have to act as if you're not going back. The minute you finish that cycle, you climb off your bicycle and you've got to act as if you're not going back. You've got to put your bicycle down, take off your cycling helmet, take off your shoes, put them down, find your running things and move on. Nobody's going to say, listen, I don't want to act as if I'm not going back. Maybe I need the bicycle. Let me just put it over my shoulder and let me go and start running the half marathon or the marathon to get to the finish line. Are you nuts? You're making it harder for yourself. You need to free yourself up from the things that no longer serve you, the things that you don't need in the next part of this journey. That part of the journey is done. You need to act as if you're never going back. Wow, that's incredible. How has your market changed in the way that you need to let go of the things If you're thinking, wow, I just got to have a show house now, how can I do that? Or just you know what happens a lot of the time is we think we're adapting, but actually all we're doing is conforming to somebody else's idea of how we should be doing things. I bet that almost every single one of you watching here strung together those videos when you were in lockdown and you couldn't show houses because that was the only way that people could actually take a tour around the house. Was that the best thing to do? I disagree. I don't think it was, because you took away your superpower. And what is your superpower? Your ability to work with people and negotiate with people. And when somebody says, well, I don't like the house, you're going to buy the house, you want to put an offer to purchase in, or the tenant agreement, and they said, no, I wanted 2 bedrooms, I wanted 3 bedrooms, it's got 2 bedrooms. And I said, I didn't want a pool, it's got a pool. Okay, I'll look at the next one. But you didn't even have the opportunity to have that discussion because they were viewing the properties without you. You weren't even able to say, listen, I tell you what, okay, so I hear you. It has two bedrooms, you wanted 3, and it's got a swimming pool, you didn't want one. So besides those 2 things, is there any other reason you wouldn't want to buy this property? Now you're allowing them to view the property without seeing the obstacles. But you weren't able to do that because they were viewing it without you. So maybe there was a better way. I don't know. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But at every single turn, we need to challenge our thinking and challenge our belief systems and our assumptions. And maybe we need to start acting as if you're not going back and there's something different that's going to come after that. So I found out about a month after the race. I went to go and see a surgeon because my shoulder just wasn't healing. And we found out that the shoulder was broken. It wasn't just dislocated, it was broken. And again, that surgeon looked at me and he said, there's something... cuckoo, there's something wrong. I said, no, it's just how badly you want it. And I'm not unique. There's nothing different about me. We all have this stuff. When we want it badly enough, when it means that much, it's hard to make it mean something unless it means something to you. When it means a lot, when you need it and you want it, you're prepared to go through anything. Do you know there are only 2 secrets to success in real estate? Just 2. The first one is that successful agents do all the things that unsuccessful agents do not want to do. They do them often and they do them well. Those uncomfortable things, those things we don't want to do. That's success right there. And then successful agents work harder than unsuccessful agents. Not only do they work harder, they work smarter. They work harder at the smart stuff. That's what it is. How badly you want it. But yet we come up with all the excuses and all the reasons why we're failing, or why we're not fulfilling our expectations, or the expectations our colleagues or our brand have on us. So I believe that discomfort sparks outrageous achievements. And if you aren't uncomfortable right now, the chances of you changing anything or moving forward or achieving much more than you are right now are slim. I want you to get uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's in that place that magic happens. So the thinking that brought you here cannot be the thinking that moves you forward. You see, things have changed. Your market has changed. The environment has changed. The economy has changed. All of this stuff has changed, which means that the only way you can adapt is to change your own way of thinking. Or you can continue to think the way you have and wonder why nothing's changing. You need to change how you think, because the thinking that brought you here cannot be the thinking that takes you going forward. So what that means is I need you to choose very, very carefully. I need you to choose how you feel and think about the market. The way I had to choose and think about how I felt about the sea and how I felt about the race conditions. It's the same for everyone. It's not different. There's no one market for you and one market for somebody else. People often ask me, Richard, how on earth did you get through a full Ironman or a number of Ironman events with stage 4 brain cancer? Well, the same way everybody else did. There weren't special rules for the cancer guy. There wasn't a shorter course for the cancer guy or more time for the cancer guy. It was exactly the same thing. I had to get through it the same way everybody else did. But controlling my thoughts and controlling my actions, one step in front of the next step. So this is so important. Why? Because what is your product? What is your product? And you might say to me, my product is property. You know, I sell property, I let it out. My product is property. And I'd say, you're wrong. It isn't. Because that is the seller's property or the landlord's property. It's their product. It's not yours. You're in the service industry, which means that your product is you. Think about that. It's you. And people only use a property professional or estate agent that they know, like, and trust. That's it. Which means you're it. The more people who know you, like you, and trust you, the more business you're going to have. And you know that your brand is congruent with that? Because it's all about what? People first. Putting people first. It's not about you, it's about them. Service industry. Doing the right thing. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. It's that simple. And that's trust, right? Doing the right thing. Being courageous. Man, if ever you've been called upon to be courageous, it would be right now. and having fun and laughter. And you know, the fun and laughter is contagious. It really is. And people want to be around people that are fun and laughing. But if you're super serious and the world is on top of you and it's woe is me and this is a pandemic and the market is tough and everything's bad and blah, 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 nobody's going to want to do business with you. Your clients are looking at you for leadership. Your clients are looking at you to see what resilience looks like. They're looking at you for solutions. Which you are the product. You are the brand ambassador for Harcourts. You are it. And your brand is looking at you. Your clients are looking at you. So act as if you are a leader. Is somebody who acts in a way that serves, and leadership is all about serving, actually. That's what leadership is. And I think that PTS is so important right now. Prepare to serve your clients, prepare to serve your brand, prepare to serve within your families. I mean, right now our wine's been taken away and our kids have been brought back home again, and that's great. But you know, so how do we? Oh man, I got to dig deep and I got to serve again. I got to serve them. You know, they're looking at their dad for direction, and looking at their dad for how does he handle this thing, and they're going to take their lead from me. And your clients and your kids and your families, your parents, they're all looking at you for leadership. So, in closing, if you want to move forward out of this place, my challenge to you, and it really is a challenge to you, is to do something today that your future self is going to thank you for. What is that thing? Whether it's taking care of your own energy, whether it's your self-care plan, whether it is making those phone calls you don't want to make, swallowing that frog and doing those things you don't want to do, whether, you know, that stuff, your future self is going to thank you for that stuff. Putting out the fires with the sellers and the landlords and the tenants and, you know, who are all sitting in these places and they can't transfer because there are issues everywhere, and phoning them before they phone you. That's doing something your future self is going to thank you for, because whether you're there, whether you're not, the problem exists. And when you're not there, you become the problem. So, you know, how do you solve that? There are so many ways of doing something today that your future self is going to thank you for. So that's my challenge to you. And if you can focus on those things, you're using this thing between your ears to serve you, to move into a different place. And we will get out of this thing stronger, because that's it. You know, the things that challenge us the most are the things that make us grow the most. I didn't survive 3 different brain cancers and 4 years of fighting brain cancer just to survive brain cancer. I survived it for my life to mean something. I survived it to grow. I survived it to try and enrich other people's lives. We're not just going to survive this pandemic to survive it. We want to survive this to thrive, and to become better people, better agents, more successful, more profitable, and get out on the other side smiling. You're going to look back one day and you're going to judge how you acted throughout this thing and how you conducted yourself. You'll judge yourself, and we've got lots of time to make sure that we judge ourselves in the best possible light. So thank you so much for your time. Please come and connect with me if you aren't already on the social medias. I'd love it if you would add some of the color of your life to mine, and allow me to add some of mine to you. And until next time, thank you very much for the gift of your time, and you've got this. Cheers.